Hi, this is Coach Barbano. I'm going to go over some strategies for playing a 3-4-3 soccer formation. I've observed in the last two games that we have failed to control the middle of the field. It appears that the 3-4-3 formation gives us the best opportunity for controlling the field, playing the best defense, and as well as providing the best offensive opportunities. I'm also going to point out some of the observations I've seen why we have not controlled the middle of the field. There's three fundamental events in soccer. You're playing offense, you're playing defense, or you're in transition. From defense to offense, or from offense to defense. It's critical that every player must know where they are going and what to do once they get there. And everyone has a role in offense, defense, and in transition. The key to winning in soccer is to move as a unit. And you have to operate as a unit during offense, defense, and in transition. Again, you have to know where you're going and what you're supposed to do once you get there. The key is to avoid being outnumbered on defense and offense because of either poor positioning or poor transition. We want to bring the maximum number of team players to bear on offense and defense. Let's talk about offense. This is the ideal offensive formation. Inside that red rectangle is the unit. Here we transition from our end of the field and we move forward as a unit into the opponent's half of the field. We are three forwards forward, indicated by an F, four midfielders and an arc supporting the forwards, and our three defensemen are up just inside of our side of the midfield line. These players together need to function as a unit in order for us to win and control the center of the field. Here we see a number of red dotted lines with arrows on them. These are passing opportunities, and these are the type of passes that these players would do if they were in these positions. Defensemen passing to midfielders, midfielders passing to forwards, midfielders passing to each other. And then you see the yellow lines. These are attack lanes. The forwards go on attack, the midfielders, if they see the opportunity, they go on attack. The whole idea is to pen up the opposing teams in their half of the field and be spread out so that we can take advantage of our position and gain shots on goal. Now let's talk about this a little bit more in detail. The defensemen provide support, passing to the midfielders. They also form a defensive wall just inside of our half of the midfield line. The midfielders receive passes from the defensemen. They also pass to the forwards and each other, and they exploit attack opportunities and go toward the goal and shoot. See the yellow arrows. The midfielders also spread the opponent's defense, creating holes in their defense. This is critical. They're always looking for the give and go. The forwards, who are camping out in the goal, put pressure on the opponent's defense. Forwards pass to and from midfielders, looking for the give and go, and the forwards pass to each other and go to the goal to shoot. The forwards exploit all the opportunities and shoot. Now, these positions are not static. These are dynamic. These are the endpoints of moving from our half of the field to their half of the field. We move as a unit. And as we get into these final positions, we would be exploiting opportunities to score. If those opportunities don't exist in transition, then we would assume these positions and go for the pass, go for the opportunity, and go for the goal. Now here's an example of the wrong offensive formation. You can see that the lines are too far spread out. We have done this in past games. Our forwards are very far forward by themselves in front of the opponent's goal. The midfielders are just inside of the midfield line, and our defensemen are back near our goal. Let's talk about this a little bit more. As you can see, in the opponent's half of the field, where we're trying to mount an offensive attack, there's a huge gap. This gap can be exploited by the opponent's defense. There's almost no opportunity for our midfielders to support the forwards. We just can't get enough offensive pressure. the defense are way too close to our goal. They can't even support the midfielders, and they're not even in the attack. Whereas our midfielders are unable to support the forwards, they're unable to receive passes from the defensemen, and they can't support the attack. So our forwards are alone and attacking. They have no support from the midfielders, and the opponents overwhelm our forwards who are outnumbered because they have their defensemen, their midfielders, and possibly their forwards. Let's talk about defense. This is the ideal defense formation. We have, as a unit, we go from transition from the opponent's end of the field to our end of the field. Our three forwards are just on the opponent's side of the midfield line. Just on the inside of the midfield line on our side are the four midfielders. And then we have three defensemen that are at a short distance away from the yellow line from the penalty area or 18-yard box. Let's talk about what their roles and responsibilities are. These red arrows show challenge and cover directions that our players would play. Forwards would challenge the attacking offensive players from the other team. They would also trail them into our half of the field. The midfielders would go forward and challenge the attacking team. They would also go back and play defense in our corners. They would also converge toward the center of the field to support the defensemen. The defensemen would come out as well, and they would challenge the attacking players. Those yellow lines are the last lines of defense where our defensemen go back and protect the penalty area box. Let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. The defensemen have to protect the goal. That's the sole purpose. They have to keep the centers clear. They clear balls to the sidelines. They don't pass in front of the goal, and they don't let attackers get behind them. They challenge any attacker within the 18-yard box, and they move back to the 18-yard box as the last line of defense. The midfielders, which are critical to controlling the game at the center of the field, they challenge the opponents early. They go out and meet them. They have to get the ball, but they can't overcommit, and they cannot stab at the ball. They're playing defense, not offense now. They use their body. Their whole purpose is to interrupt the opponent's attack. Do not let the opponents set up passing formations. That is one thing that the midfielders' sole purpose in interrupting the attack is. And they cannot collapse onto our defensemen. They're there to gain possession of the ball. They don't pass in front of the goal. And they want to force attackers to the sidelines and away from and in front of the goal. They want to clear the ball to the sidelines. It's much more difficult to score. The forwards, their purpose is to interrupt the attack. Take the ball, challenge the attacking players as they attempt to penetrate the midfield line and support the midfielders. They may even come into our half of the field. This is how you would set up and play defense in a 3-4-3. Now, let's talk about another situation. This is a wrong defense formation. In this formation, and we've done this, in fact we did it last week, our forwards were way over the midfield line. They weren't even playing defense. They were standing there as a result of the last offensive play we had. As the other team's offense attacked, our midfielders just retreated back and backed up into in front of our defensemen. There was a huge gap in our half of the field that was occupied by the other attacking team. They had their forwards and their midfielders and their defensemen up, and they just kept shooting at us, shot after shot. And our defensemen were right in front of the goal. You can see that once the defense has collapsed, the defensemen are unable to protect the goal because the shots are such close distance. In fact, we're just waiting to be shot at. These huge gaps are exploited by the opponent's offense. They've got us outnumbered, and our entire defense has collapsed back to 7 players. Midfielders in last week's game retreated too quickly and too much. As the other team moved forward into our half of the field, instead of challenging them, they just retreated. That is not the way to play defense as a midfielder. The midfielders did not challenge the attackers. The huge gaps permitted the opposing attackers to set up, pass, and shoot at will. And we were unable to clear the ball in this position, the formation. Let's talk about transition. The key to transition, whether it's offense or defense, is the players must maintain a constant distance and relative position to each other throughout the transition, in both offense and defense. This means as you're moving up and down the field, you have to maintain the relative distance from each other, as well as relative speed, throughout the entire movement from offense to defense or defense to offense. This provides support opportunities in offense and also covers gaps in defense. The reason why we do this is that every other player knows where the other player is, his other teammate, and he can anticipate where they are. If they get doubled up and trapped, they know where the other player is. They can pass to him. Our players can't turn around and look for someone to pass. Also, if we're on the offense and we're moving forward, if the midfielder gets cornered, he passes to the defenseman passes it to the midfield. He can do this if you maintain a relative position and distance without having to even turn around and look. Transition is critical to be effective. A large portion of the game is won and lost in transition. Soccer is a very dynamic game. So in summary, this is the ideal offensive formation. Look at these positions. Understand what your role is there, what you're trying to accomplish. Here it is for defense. Similar but different. Finally, in transition, you must maintain a constant distance and relative position to each other throughout the movement from up and down the field, from offense to defense and back and forth. In summary, every player has a role on offense, defense, and in transition. To win, we have to play as a team. Operating as a unit is critical to being a team. If we operate as a unit, we function as a team, and we will win.